All right, well, we are here with the executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, Turning Point spokesman Andrew Kolvet. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm actually, I didn't know how I was going to feel. It's our first AmFest without Charlie, and it's been emotional. Actually, the morning was pretty emotional, but then when I got here, it's been phenomenal, actually. I love the energy. I'm feeding off the people. This is what it's all about. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, actually. Where was your head at, like, walking into this building this morning? I mean, I don't know what time you got here. I imagine it was quite early. Where was your head at, like, walking in, seeing what was to be the biggest AmFest in the company's history? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I actually didn't get here that early today. So it kind of, actually, I would have preferred it just to get in. And I think, I realized that the legacy of Charlie Kirk is just so much bigger and wider, and the breadth is so much larger than I could have ever imagined, actually. And that's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the reasons why actually coming in here has been cathartic. It's almost healing in a sense, because I see all these people that have been impacted by what Charlie did. And I worked behind the scenes with Charlie for 8 years, and I knew we were having an impact, and in some ways I just had no idea how big that impact was until 9/10, and then you come here and it's kind of another shot in the arm that you're like, hey, what God unleashed is very much alive and well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. I've been to several of these events, and I remember exactly the energy that they tend to kind of conjure within very good people, well-meaning Christian patriots. And then I, of course, attended the memorial in September, and that was a very real energy, but it was much more faith-driven, I felt like we were having a much more religious experience, which I would guess is exactly what Charlie would have wanted given the circumstance. But walking in today, I still feel that energy here, but it is different in a sense. It feels maybe more driven or more determined, maybe even a little, I don't want to say angry, but definitely like willing to do what needs to be done to take our country back in a way that I don't think it's been in previous iterations. Not because, the iterations themselves weren't like good enough to take it there, but simply it's a different time. We're just in a different circumstance right now as a country, and thankfully, like, people who are on our side, good people, are really rising to the occasion.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think determined is a great way to put it, and I think it's no secret that the movement, the conservative movement, has gone through a sifting. It's been a bit of, there's been consternation, struggle. There's been personality clashes.
Right.
I get all that. But this is why Charlie built Turning Point the way he did, to have these touch points where people get together in person.
Yeah.
You just cannot replace being in a hall like this, seeing real people, having real conversations, connecting for the first time. This is what it's all about, because that online thing can get toxic.
Yeah.
And then you come in and you shake somebody's hand, you look them in the eye, you smile, you talk, you have a conversation, they say thank you, you say thank you back. That ultimately is what being human's about. And so these events, these conferences, Charlie knew how critical it was, because these people are going to make best friends. They're going to make lifelong friends.
Yeah.
That some might get married. The orgs are going to cross-pollinate and start working together. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, I've had a couple experiences with people who maybe I've had some, colorful exchanges with online before. And then
You've had none of those.
Well, not once, which is why I got to deal with Blaze. But I've had interactions with these people where, they will confront me or I'll confront them. And because you're face-to-face, all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're just guys, we're button heads. It is what it is. But when you're only online, it incentivizes your just like worst behaviors, because you are not going to be held accountable for what you say, because it's just pixels on a screen. And that can be entertaining. It can certainly drive engagement. But in terms of like moving the ball down the field and increasing our quality of life and making our country like closer to what our grandparents would expect or would recognize, like, it's just completely unproductive, and you have to get involved like on the ground.
Oh, I totally agree. I think an actual good rule of thumb, really, that something that should get messaged out way more from conservative influencers online, is that if you are taking advice or taking a cue from somebody who never gets out of their studio, that never gets out of their basement, that never is actually IRL in the field with the people, then you should probably take that opinion with a grain of salt.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. I remember my first trip to D.C. when I was a young whippersnapper, and I just started getting a little bit of traction online, so I thought I was real cool. And then I was going to these like parties with people who actually like work in politics, and that was the most humbling experience of my life, because you realize how little the online stuff actually matters and how unimpressive it is to people who are actually working towards the cause that you sit down on a mic and claim you care about so much, but it's like, okay, what have you actually done?
Well, I mean, increasingly the online chatter matters a lot, right? I mean, the online world ultimately filters into some IRL stuff.
Yeah.
But you cannot fully do your job. If your job is to be a messenger, a communicator of truth, of moral clarity, and you are not also simultaneously in the grassroots talking with people, then your opinion matters not to me, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm starting to filter in the good and the bad, is because you just learn so much. Like, I've had 14, 15 conversations just since I got here, and I'm like, already my impulses, my instincts are sharpened and improved because of it.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting things, watching the way the Charlie Kirk Show functioned as a kind of like organ of information during the 2024 election, because you were seeing what I would call like the batting average, where like every take that was produced by that show was like more or less 100% true, but then it also did something very unique where it was able to avoid these like pitfalls that people sometimes fall into, where they decide to indulge in like drama content or stuff that's just like ultimately unproductive. And it was probably the only show that was able to survive that during like the 2024 election, which is why ultimately it was so effective at like explaining President Trump's agenda to normal Americans, getting them on board with it. And it seems now that everybody just wants to like go insane and just like pretend that like none of that stuff matters and it's all like over and we won and we can just pack it up.
Well, listen, I think there's two things that I would say to that. One is you build coalitions before an election, okay? That you got to do that to win, right?
Yep.
When you get on the other side of that, the coalition sometimes fractures. Sometimes there's infighting. Sometimes this wing of the movement is at odds with that wing. That actually totally makes sense. In an off year, where we don't have big major elections, that's going to happen. The sifting, the wrestling, the debating.
Sure.
I actually think that could be really like okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. When it came to H-1B, we made some progress. We're not all the way there, but the movement had to kind of have this like headbutting moment, right? You're going to see that in foreign policy. You're going to see that on all these issues. That's okay. Don't be afraid of that. Embrace that. When it becomes about online feuding, that's when it gets really distracting, because it's like a bunch of kids at a fight at high school, and everybody's meet me at the such and such place. We're gonna everybody just wants to gawk at that. It becomes massively distracting. That's when you get the goosenecking, right? So we want to avoid that. We want to stay on message, and this is where Charlie's ultimate sort of legacy, I think, really needs to guide us here, is that he refused to be dragged down into those things. He wanted to stay action. He wanted to stay mission oriented and stay but basically fighting the real bad guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. What is your victory condition for this event? Like what is going to happen this weekend for you to walk out of this and be like, that was a complete and total victory. This is unbelievable. I am more optimistic now than ever going forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I definitely want to see a collision of ideas. I embrace that.
Yeah.
I welcome it. I'm not afraid of it. I also want to see people keep it about the ideas.
Sure.
That would be good. And if it doesn't happen perfectly, I'm not going to be that bothered. But I would like to see it about the ideas. Let's keep it about where this party needs to go, how we need to define ourselves. And then I would say, listen, if we end this weekend and there's a sort of mass realization that the things, and I'll say it again, that God has unleashed, that like our idiocy, our incompetence, our failures cannot stop, that there is something bigger than all of us. I mean, I genuinely believe it, that the movement that is represented in this room is the last bulwark for freedom around the world, of Western civilization, of Christendom. It's that important. So listen, I get it. We disagree on this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
We ultimately have to come together and link arms with one another, because we can either hang alone, as Elon Musk said, or we will surely hang. We will either hang together, or we surely hang alone. And that is true still, because the people in this room, you might have qualms, you might have squabbles with them, but we need each other to win.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. You mentioned ideas. I want to know, what's the hottest take you've got these days? What's something you maybe wouldn't want to say into a microphone, but I mean, you've got all these people that want to hear it.
No, I mean, my hottest take is probably that, and I mean this for young people. It's like, you do not have to have your father's foreign policy to belong in the club. That means Israel. That means even there's questions about what's going on in Venezuela. I get it.
Yeah.
There is this peace through strength. What does that even look like? But I'm not going to look at a 21-year-old that is graduating college, that's probably going to have their job taken away by AI, is worried about the affordability crisis, can't afford a home, and tell them that you need to be more concerned about like the war in Gaza than about your rent. I'm not gonna make them do that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a fair thing to think. Now, I am very I feel a certain way about our foreign policy when it comes to places like Israel.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to agree with me, though.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be a purity test. And the second that we actually make sure that that's clear, I think that's a pretty spicy take, especially around some parts. But here's the thing. I have some opinions. I'm willing to try and compel you that my ideas are better.
Sure.
But I'm basically saying, hey, I was born in America. I'm going to die in America. My kids were born here. They're probably going to die in America. I think it's okay to want to take care of the home base first, okay?
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. However, I would be okay dying in Venezuela in pursuit of Venezuelan oil so that we could make America rich. The way that, I mean, you remember this growing up during, like, the war on terror. We're always told that, like, we're only over there to take the oil. And then Trump comes out. He's like, we didn't even take the oil. It's like, we should have. I agree. Like, I don't want to go die for nation-building projects like spreading liberal democracy, feminism to the Middle East.
That was one of the best takes that Charlie had in the campus tour in the fall and the lead up to the election was like, why should I vote for Trump? Some liberal kid would come up and ask, why should I vote for you? And he would say, because Trump's not going to send you go die in some foreign land.
Yeah.
That's a really compelling thing to tell a 18-year-old that might get drafted if things go real crazy. And you got to give Trump some credit here. Yeah, he's got a more, I would say, aggressive foreign policy posture than some would like. But he's a saber rattler. He is a posturer on purpose because he believes that he has to be credible when he brandishes those threats.
Right.
So but at the end of the day, you got to say he has avoided these conflicts. He's avoided sending boots on the ground. He's avoided these skirmishes by and large, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for that.
No, not at all. And I mean, people will bring up that he brought on John Bolton as if that makes him equivalent to George Bush. And it's like you said, he brought on John Bolton to signal to the world, like, hey, if you want to take it there, we can take it there. I've got the guy who is like a professional in taking it there. And then obviously they went their separate ways. But yeah, it's not just no new wars. I mean, he literally established the withdrawal timelines for Afghanistan. He stopped Timber Sycamore in Syria, that regime change policy. So the guy is like fully committed to this like America First political project, whether it's with his foreign policy, immigration policy. And we haven't had that in your lifetime, in my lifetime, probably most lifetimes of attendees at this event. And so I don't understand why people want to like lie to themselves about what this guy's actually been able to accomplish for us, because there's no other game in town.
Yeah. I mean, would you rather have Kamala's foreign policy?
Well, some
I mean, but that's literally what we were choosing between. Okay, It's like you can debate about the finer things and the nuances. You could debate about what America's role with Israel should be.
Yeah.
But like, I think, does it have a right to exist? Yeah. Do you need to reject like anti-Semitism, Jew hate? Yeah. I think that's like not scapegoating like this tiny minority of people in this tiny sliver of land is probably really good for your brain and your mental health. I think it doesn't stand the logic test. But do you need to fund them? Do you need to get into war? Like all that stuff should be on the table. And I think actually Trump has navigated that issue extraordinarily well, and he's achieving peace by being willing to talk to and work with people that in other past administrations we wouldn't be willing to talk to.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, he's navigating all of these competing political interests that obviously have an interest in being cozy with the American government, but he's managed to do so in a way that certainly broke free from orthodoxies that we grew up with during the Bush admin or even Obama administration, whatever.
Gosh. I so relate. Like, you hear some people say what they thought during the Iraq War or whatever, or Afghanistan, and this sort of gung-hoism that has completely fallen out of favor. I mean, listen, I hate war. Yeah. War's terrible. It sucks.
Yeah.
Like, we should not be trying to go meddle in foreign countries that we have no business in. Now, what's interesting, well, what about the Monroe Doctrine? What about the Western Hemisphere? What about oil land that's been seized in Venezuela? These are great discussions to have, and reasonable people are going to come on going to fall on different sides of that debate. But I think it's worth having.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't like American empire if it's liberal, but if it's conservative, now that's an interesting.
Well, that was like we're exporting our values, and I was like, you mean LGBTQ flags and BLM? Like, what are we doing here? I don't want to export this to our embassies and abroad. That's I don't want to export that. But yeah, listen, if we can be a force for like spreading free speech in Europe and by tying some of our aid and our military might in NATO or whatever by saying, hey, you need to live up to the values that Western civilization was built upon, that's an idea we can spread.
That's absolutely right. And I'm very happy to hear you say that because no one talks about that. I mean, like, I get it. Redcoats, we have but we are an outgrowth of their civilization.
No, I'm a huge Anglophile.
Yeah, so, we need to help them out a little bit because they get arrested for saying stuff that you and I say on Twitter all the time.
Well, what was a realization for me was just how much European conservatives look to American conservatives to set the pace. And we have to remember that we have friends over there that are nationalists, that are conservative nationalists, that want to see the greatness of Europe restored. They want to see an end to the mass migration. They need us to link arms with them. We can't just write them off. And what I used to get requests for Charlie all the time, like, can you interview with this French thing or this Swedish group or this Italian group?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, they just think of us as animals in a cage. And it's like, actually, what I've realized is that, yeah, our free speech is secure right now with President Trump in the White House, but what happens if we lose the next election?
Yeah.
Then, you're not going to have any allies across the pond in Europe. And so you need to actually establish footholds of free speech and sanity in Europe and across the West if it's going to survive here.
Yeah, and it's so good you say that, too, because before Donald Trump descended from the golden escalator, the American right was so, black-pilled because we're going into 2016 thinking, okay, I guess we maybe support Rand Paul, hope he gets a position in the Jeb Bush administration. And it got to a point where people in America were literally saying, we have to look to Europe. They're going to lead the movement. America's done. And then Trump showed us that actually we can put America first. We can make American nationalism a viable political project. And now Europe is looking at us.
No, I know. It was like the question was how many do we have to amnesty to?
Yeah.
And thankfully we're not there anymore. So
thankfully we're not. Well, Andrew,
Overton
this has been
window is moved.
Overton's going to be mad when he sees what we did to his window. He's going to be pretty mad.
But on the other side of the house.
That's right. Thank you so much for being here. God bless. And where can people find you if they want to see more?
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter at Andrew Kolvet, and follow the Charlie Kirk Show. Subscribe. We're hanging in there. And Erica looked at me like a couple days after it happened, and she said, you have to keep the show going. They can't silence my husband's voice, and now you guys have to do that. And so I never imagined that we were going to do anything but follow Charlie into the White House someday, but we have to keep his voice alive, and this is one of the ways to do it. So support the show, certainly.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.